Good morning and welcome to the Catholic Mom Winter Book Club. I think of what season it was. It's snowing
Yay!
outside my window, so that should not have been a hard thing for me to remember. We are so excited at Catholic Mom because we are going to be featuring a publisher we have yet to feature in one of our book clubs. And from somebody who lives in the Boston area, very close to the Daughters of St. Paul, and who love them all just so dearly, the hashtag media nuns, if you haven't heard of them. Hit any social media platform and you'll be amused, especially on Super Bowl Sunday. But that's another story. Today, we will be looking at a new book by the Daughters of St. Paul, In the Trenches, Finding God Through Parenting Littles. I absolutely love that littles word. That wasn't really popular when I had littles. I just think it's so precious. Kelsey Gillespy, along with her editor, Courtney. Okay, Courtney, I'm just going to have you say it because
I'm Courtney Saponaro.
it's so, and it's small Catholic world. I knew Courtney as a youth in the youth group way back, not way back for you, but way back for me. It's so great to have you both here. And we're so excited to be encouraging moms, especially in those early years. And
Hey,
in
Lisa.
joining us online is Lisa Hendy. Lisa, founder of Catholic Mom, thank you so much for being up very early because she's on the West Coast to join
Oh,
us this morning.
goodness.
So let's start with you, Kelsey. Thank you so much for being with us and tell us a little bit about yourself and the genesis of your book, In the Trenches.
Yeah, sure. Well, my name's Kelsey Gillespy, and I am not a sister at Pauline Books and Media, clearly. But I am from St. Louis originally. Now we have kind of transplanted down south to to Texas, and actually, it's actually cold here too. It's like 13 degrees, and we don't really know what to do with ourselves right now. Everybody's just like shut in. So hopefully, you guys are shut in with me, and we can join each other here and have community here. Um, but I have a wonderful husband who's actually taking care of our 5 kids right now. So if you guys hear any background noise, welcome to our house. It's loud.
Love it.
But the kids decided that the name of our house should be called the Crazy House. So I think that's pretty fitting. but but yeah, so I have had a long time passion for writing, and just talking about the genesis of this book. When I first started having kids, everything just felt so overwhelming. Like I just felt like I had to make all the right decisions. It felt like there were so many decisions to make too. Like, should you breastfeed or bottle feed? And how do you start feeding them on solid foods? And how do you get them to sleep? And you like have to do all of the things, and you feel like you have to do them all like just perfectly. Like their fate depends on you getting all of these answers right. And so I just found myself after one baby and 2 babies, I was just kind of burnt out and crazy. Like I obviously still don't know what I'm doing really. But I would just constantly pray, like, God, just tell me what the right answers are and I'll do it, just zap them into me and then I'll do the thing that you say. And, like the good teacher that he is, he didn't do that. He never just like gives people the answer. And so one day when one of my kids was having just like this absolute meltdown, I was just like, God, I don't know what to do right now, but you, God, are a parent. You're a father. And you not only are a father, you're like the greatest parent who ever existed. So how would you parent me in this situation? And in that moment, like everything changed for me. Parenthood, motherhood changed. And he showed me himself, right? And how more often than I would like to admit, I was more like the whiny baby. And he is the generous, loving, faithful father who takes care of me. And so even though like in the beginning stages of my motherhood, when I would try to like step away from my family and get some quiet prayer time to connect with God, that never ever worked. Like it would never work. Like the moment my eyes opened, that was my kid's alarm clock. They would wake up and be like, "Oh, it's time to play. Now mom's awake." And so like I for years thought that parenthood was kind of an interruption to my faith life. As terrible
Mm,
as it sounds, it was like a distraction, and it was something that stopped me from growing closer to God. But in that moment and going forward, I realized that this vocation of parenthood, this thing that I thought was like distracting and pulling me away from my faith, was actually one thing by role and by definition that could really connect and unite me with God in a way that I had never experienced before. So that's kind of the genesis of this book. I started blogging just about all the different ways in the humdrum, nitty gritty moments of motherhood that God kind of revealed himself to me. And so I guess that was kind of the origins of it all.
And before I asked Courtney to introduce herself, just something that really struck me is I remember being a young mother, and I was in Bible study. I was in small group faith sharing, and there were some older moms, and they would have like all this wonderful extra time for prayer. You know, they'd get up and spend an hour having a cup of coffee and reading their scriptures and their book clubs. And the younger moms would be like, oh, like we just lamented and we wanted that time. And they were so wise, and they would assure us that way before we wanted to, we would have all that time. Because what's the adage? The days are long, but the years are short. And that is truly, it was just something that I wanted to share because I knew what comfort and it gave me when I felt like I wasn't giving a God enough time, or I wanted more time for prayer. And I love how you reframe that, Kelsey. And it is your prayer. It's not separating it from it. It is absolutely how you're called to pray in those moments, because those are your moments. That's beautiful. Can't wait to dive deeper in this with you. But first, I want to give Courtney an opportunity to explain who she is and why we've been blessed with her joining us this morning.
Hi everyone. I'm Courtney, and I'm an editor here at Pauline Books and Media. I am obviously also not a sister. I've worked here as an editor for about 4 years now, and I'm also not a mom, but I had the privilege of being able to work on In the Trenches with Kelsey, and it was a lot of fun.
What was one of the things that really kind of surprised you, Courtney, when you were editing? What, like maybe something that Kelsey shared that you kind of maybe weren't expecting, or you found you felt would be very helpful for mothers? Just one little, I didn't really tell you I was going to ask you that. So just,
okay.
You're on the spot.
Maybe
tell
not
me how
one.
wonderful I am. Go.
You're wonderful. Okay, maybe not like one specific part of the book, but I think one specific thing about Kelsey's writing in this book is just her ability to take just like the ordinary everyday moments and kind of flip them on their head and basically use even like the same wording to help people recognize like how God is speaking to them through that experience in basically the same way.
Oh, I love that.
It is
really Thank you, Courtney.
And I think that's very important, that for your reading to be engaging, for it to be relatable, because let's face it, moms have the least amount of time of anybody in the world. And if they're going to pick up a book and read, they want to be engaged. And the thing I liked is how short the chapters were. Yeah. I feel like
that was intentional. That was intentional.
So tell me what
I get actually kind of wordy. So it was Courtney's job just to slice all the words out and make it sound good. So she did a really good job with that.
You can just feel like you're just so accomplished. I have read 7 chapters today. I felt, everyone likes to be accomplished in some way. So let's dive into part 1. It's called What is Parenthood? And I know we're going to be fire hosing in a half an hour, all this amazing information. But I know the Holy Spirit is going to guide us to share what needs to be shared with those listening today. So, Kelsey, I'll obviously start with you. I know that you have some things on your mind that you'd love to make sure we get shared. Yeah, I'm a writer too. I need a better editor, I think, in my head, Courtney. Would you like to move?
She's the best of the best.
Courtney, would you like to move into my head? Kelsey, where should we start with What is Parenthood?
Well, just kind of revisiting what I was talking about earlier, just the shift for me. Like when I first found out that I was going to be a mother, I freaked out, to be honest. Like the moment I saw that I was pregnant, I just kind of crumbled to the ground because I had believed the lie that when you have kids, like your life ends, and you've got to give up all of your passions, all of your pursuits, all of you, at least for the next 18 years. That's kind of the unfortunate message I think that society gives us, and I fell for it. And then after I had my first baby, it's true, my world did definitely change, and I definitely changed. Um, but what I think people forget is that change doesn't mean bad, and hard doesn't mean bad. Um, in fact, there's a lot of times throughout scripture when Jesus calls people to something or he gives a teaching and people are like, that saying is too hard. Like, how can you live this? How can you do this? And he's like, this is what's good for you. This is the truth, don't shy away from what's hard. But also just this section in and of itself is kind of step by step, hopefully taking moms with me through that journey of transformation from viewing motherhood one way to seeing it in a totally new light, in a way where growing closer to God is something that we do through the daily tasks of being a parent, as opposed to on the side, in the margins of the day when everybody's asleep, which, is never when you have littles. They're awake literally all day and all night. But something that I think that was profound for me, even just, experiencing this transformation and then writing about it, is kind of coming to grips. There's a sacramentality of parenthood in the sense, I don't mean it's, what I mean by that, it's like I'm not saying it's a sacrament, right? There are very clearly defined sacraments in the church, but there is something about parenthood in particular that reveals a truth about who God is and then invites us to dive deeper into that with him and unite with him in that vocation. And so, like, there's just a few points in this particular section that have really helped me get even closer and grow in my faith just through the daily grind of being a mom. And I think one of the things is parenthood is like the only thing that I've ever experienced, the only avenue that I've experienced that literally is, by definition, the corporal works of mercy. So every day, and dare I even say the spiritual works of mercy as well. We're feeding the hungry, we're giving drink to the thirsty, we're housing the homeless, we're clothing the naked, we're instructing the ignorant, admonishing the sinner. We're doing all these things, and it's not like we have to like go out and intentionally make sure we do those things in the world, but they just are naturally occurring here in our home. And so just by being a mom, by being a parent, we get to live the call of Jesus. We get to really like manifest it and put flesh and bone onto the words that he's called us to do. And I think that is one of the most impactful things, at least for me.
And Courtney, at any point, if you want to add something, jump in. You don't have to wait for me to call on you.
Okay.
I want to share just the titles of the chapters in this particular part of the book of part 1. I also want to let everybody know that I've put the link to where you can get the book if you don't already have your copy of In the Trenches, as well as the coupon code that the Daughters of St. Paul have been so generous to make available to us, that you can get 20% off for using Trenches BC by February 12th. So that was wonderful. We also have some questions that are coming in as well, Kelsey, that I will share with you in a minute. So the what is parenthood? You have In the Trenches, which I absolutely love. I love this whole idea of the trenches, because that truly is where it feels like most days.
Yes.
Growing like a weed, do as I say, not as I do. There's a method to my madness. When you're a parent, you'll understand. Use it or lose it. I've got eyes in the back of my head. Were you raised in a barn? You're filthy. Like they're so clever, and they all really do make much like really solid good sense as we're diving in. Before we go further, let's look at a question we have here from Teresa Gallagher. I don't know if you can see this or not, Kelsey. I'll just read it because this, in case somebody is not looking at us or they're listening on the podcast. Kelsey, I'm wondering if you've ever had recent experiences of parenting where God has spoken to you. Has this lens continued to work for you ever since the book was published? Great question, Teresa.
Great. And hey, Teresa, good to see you here. But yeah, actually, and a lot of times now, instead of blogging or writing books about it, I will actually post some of these things on my social media. So feel free to follow me on Facebook and Instagram. But one of the things that I haven't posted lately is that just struck me a couple days ago. My son was riding his bike out on our street, and he decided to ride like as far away from our house as possible. And then, of course, he wants to ask me a question. And so, like, from the other end of our neighborhood, he's shouting, "Hey, Mom!" I don't even remember what his question was, but he was asking me this question. And of course, I'm like shouting back, "Yes, you could do that," or whatever it was. And he obviously, he's so far away, he can't hear me. So he's like, "What? Mom, can you do it?" And he's just like asking his question, and I'm continuing to answer over and over. But the poor kid can't hear because he's too far away, you know? So I'm like, eventually, I stopped answering his question. Our neighbors probably think we're nuts. But anyways, I was just like, just come to me, and I will answer it for you. And in that moment, I was just like, wow, how true is that of me? Where I'm just like constantly crying out to God, asking questions and all these things. But how rarely do I draw close to Him through the sacraments or through contemplative prayer or through just really being focused in Mass or whatever, reading scripture. Like, how often do I draw close to Him? How often do I just like shout at Him and tell me all the answers while I stay where I am doing all the things I want to do? You know? And so, and there's just little moments like that, almost on the daily, where God is just like, boom, this is you. This is so you. And He calls me out in such a kind way. So.
I love that. Come to me and I'll answer you. And it made me think of the scripture in James where he says, draw closer to God and God will draw closer to you.
Yes.
That is fantastic. So what is parenthood? Like, what about this particular area or any of these wonderful chapters would you like us to spend a little extra time on together today?
Well, first of all, can I take it back to the titles real fast?
Absolutely. Anything you'd like.
Sure. I just want to give props. My parents were like super big on idioms and expressions when I was a kid, which eventually lent itself very well to the titles in this book. There are 30 of them. So thank you, Mom and Dad, for that. And I used to be a kid, I would hear them using all of these expressions. And even as a little kid, you know, I'd repeat everything that my parents say. And so I'd go over and I'd tell my friends, "Oh, that's sour grapes," or whatever. And they'd be like, "What?" I'm like, "I've never heard that before. 6 one way, half a dozen the other," you know? And they'd be like, "What are you saying right now?" And I don't know, it's just stuff my parents say. So thanks, Mom and Dad, for teaching me all of these awesome expressions so that I could eventually put them to good use. And so fitting, today is their anniversary.
Oh.
So happy anniversary to my parents. If you're watching, happy anniversary and I love you.
That's cool.
Yeah, so cool. So thanks for joining me on that. And I have like a few favorite. I shouldn't have favorites. Like with children, we shouldn't have our own favorites. I feel like with books, we shouldn't have our favorites and our favorite chapters. But I kind of do.
We can have our
favorites with the chapters. With the chapters. Not with the babies. No, they're all so if you would like me, like I said, the chapters are super short, and we do that intentionally because I know that moms, especially moms of littles, we don't have a lot of time, but also we don't have a lot of like brain cells left. Maybe that's just me. But there would be times when I'd be like, okay, you know, I only have a few minutes, so I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna read some sort of spiritual reading, and it's like this thing from a saint from long ago, and it's like I get through a paragraph and I have to reread it like 15 times for anything to like sink in, because it's so dense and rich and poignant, and I'm trying to absorb it, but they're way smarter than me. So this book intentionally is more of a narrative, I suppose, and it's meant to be simple in the sense that we can understand it clearly and understand it well, even though it's short and hopefully jam-packed with some good, powerful truths that I think and I hope are applicable to anybody, but especially to parents of littles. So if you would like me to read a chapter, I totally can.
I think we have some questions if we
Okay.
have some time at the end. Not that I don't think that's a great idea, but I think it's such an amazing blessing that so many have joined us. We want to make sure we
Thanks for
get
being
their
here,
questions.
guys.
This is amazing. I'm so thrilled that so many people have woken up and found the time to sit with us today. This is wonderful. Courtney, was it really difficult to take this information and weed it down or whittle it down to these little bite-sized pieces? For
Not at all.
It's like, that's what I get paid for. That's,
I don't know. Like I said, I
actually,
get pretty wordy. Although
I
we
find
have
that
had a lot
fun.
of good, we have like so many good like theological discussions just in like the word comments
Mhm.
on the side, and so it's like I thoroughly enjoy. This is like really unusual, I think, for writers. Like you always want feedback and you want to grow, but like when you first hear, oh, this part is not so good, it kind of is like a sting. But every time I told Courtney, I was like, Courtney, I can't wait for your feedback, because it's always so good and just
Aw.
like rich with insight, and we always get to like start these theological discussions, and so it's always like being critiqued is like super fun and life-giving. So I appreciate you being such an awesome editor, Courtney.
Oh, I appreciate you too. I mean, I learned a lot from working on this book. And like you
Uh-huh.
said, I mean, even though I'm not a mom, like there was a lot of material in here that really helped me in my own prayer life too. Just like, oh, I guess I could think about this situation in kind of a different way now.
Oh, hooray.
That's two really great points so one of the things that we were sharing this book on our social media, we're like, even if your children are no longer littles, or even if you're not a mom, there's such rich prayer and spiritual insight that this book, and everybody is a child in some way or the other, right?
Right.
We're God's child. We have parents somewhere. It really does relate from both ends. And I think it can really be it's surprising spiritual journey in this unique package. The other thing you shared was this back and forth between you two. Of course, it was about the words of the book, but I see this real connection to what it's like to be a parent and be a mother, and to have people that we can share that journey with and bounce things off, like, how would you handle this, and what does this look like? We can do that in our prayer life, we can do that in our parenting life, and it's always good to have friends to walk this journey with you. Speaking of friends walking this journey, we have with us again Lisa Hendy, the founder of Catholic Mom. And I know only half the questions showing here, so I'll read the whole thing. Kelsey, how do you, see, I know there was a word there I was missing. How do you balance that tricky walk between sharing stories and moments that can bless and inform others, and not spending too much time on social media or oversharing your family story? It can seem like you found a great balance. And I think especially for moms in this kind of culture, in this day and age, there's this pressure to like share your perfect life or to share all your moments. People are eager to see what's happening next, but you also have to like be in those moments with your children. So I love Lisa's question. Kelsey, how do you respond to that?
Yeah, first of all, thanks so much for being here and for that awesome question. I think you mentioned it's a tricky walk to find a balance between 3 dimensions and 2 dimensions in this modern world that we're living in. And I think for me, I'm not a huge social media person to begin with. I'm more of a listener, and I like people telling me things. So getting onto social media and like posting a whole bunch is not really my jam. But when things do happen in life, kind of like these moments that just kind of like blow my hair backwards when they happen, and I'm just like, I truly do feel inspired to share that because it was such a powerful moment for me, and I hope and pray it would be a powerful moment for somebody else who might experience something similar, be in a similar stage of life. And so it's funny because when I do post something, I want it to be, hello, this is my daughter. Speaking of walking fine line. But I forgot what I was saying. Oh, when I post something, I want it to be impactful. And so if you come to like my social media sites, it I hope that all of the things that I post will be things that are profound. I'm an introvert by nature, and so I don't usually like to just do like small talk and stuff. So like anything that I try to post with meaning and depth, I hope. And that would be beneficial for the viewer, for you guys. And you know, that doesn't happen all the time. I don't always have very wise things to say. So just living life it gives me the chance to experience those moments. And when those moments come, then I know that it's a good thing to share, a good story to share with others.
Well, in the few minutes that we have left, I think that I mean, there's obviously so much in this first part that's really important. But I think for me, what really struck me was the exhaustion, the isolation, the loneliness of motherhood. And so I think I would really love for us to get to that today. So anyone listening, really, I think that would be the message that would be the most uplifting. And then I'm praying and hopefully they'll go look at the rest of the book and reach out to you. But why start the book there, Kelsey?
Yeah, well, because it is so real, and there are such spiritual and emotional and physical effects of that exhaustion and that loneliness. And I think there are so many people who, I mean, I'm sure if you guys are parents of littles, you've probably heard the whole you're going to miss this someday thing from other people. And I think that's because I've kind of wondered about this. And I think that's because this stage of raising littles is a very physical feat. You know, it's a very physical stage. We're carrying kids, we're, you know, hearing them scream in our face or whatever. We're up all day and all night. And it's, like I mentioned, there are very real effects of that physical demand. But as they get older, we get to sleep more. We get to recover from that physical toughness that this stage requires of us. And I feel like the next stage might be more of an emotional hardship. You know, like, I don't know about you guys, but like whenever I'm like in a rush or something and I have to like force myself to be patient with my kids, there's just like this ugly churning in my stomach, you know, like be patient, but this hurts, like, ow, ow, ow. And I feel like that's kind of, once we graduate from these trenches and we climb out of these trenches, I feel like that's what we have to look forward to. You know, it's less of a physical thing and more of an emotional thing. And so I feel like the parents who are saying you're going to miss this someday, it's because they're kind of in that emotional sense, that emotional stage. And they're like, I wish I could go back to sleep deprivation. But that is such a real thing. But also just talking about like stories that have happened in like moments. I will share one thing. This is probably a couple years ago even. I woke up because, you know, I have a bazillion kids. And so I was up with one in the middle of the night. And I was just, you know, kind of fuming with God, like, oh, I will wake again. And like, I'm not going to be able to do all the things that I need to do tomorrow because I'm going to be tired and blah, 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 blah. Like, just, you know, laying it on thick, being real honest with Jesus. And I feel like in that moment, he truly said, like, well, what's more important, sleep or love?
Wow.
And I, like, in a moment, a flash, the scene from the Garden of Gethsemane appeared in my mind where his apostles had fallen asleep in his greatest hour of need. And he was scared and he was in need of consoling, and his best, closest friends had fallen asleep on him and totally left him alone in that moment. And how in the middle of the night, we have that opportunity to be awake the way he had called his apostles to be awake, and to love and console him in the least of these, in the way that he had asked for his friends to love and console him in that trying moment. So
That
hopefully,
is that's a beautiful place for us to wrap up and to really take that with us. Like God mic drop I just wrote, right? Like what's more important, Kelsey?
sleep for love.
I laughed when you were speaking about, like, the different stages. Like my sons are now young adults, and I missed when I could strap them into the car seat and I knew where they were, who they were, and with, and what they were doing. Um, you do still have sleep deprived nights as a parent of young adults and older people, but it's definitely not the same exhaustion and isolation that comes. So I'm so glad that you mentioned that, and that the whole book is really wrapped around prayer. And before we leave, I work for Family Rosary, so I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that along with the purchase of the book, or also on pauline.org, their website, and I will have the link for you, is a Rosary for Parenting Littles, The Joyful Mysteries, Reflections by Kelsey, with an introduction by, how do you say that, Orion?
Sister Orion.
Orion. Oh, I know who it is. I just, again, you see the words and you just don't pronounce them out loud and you don't have
I
to say
totally
them.
get it.
But you can also pray along with Kelsey on YouTube. So we'll have all those links for you. This is a beautiful prayer. Rosary. The rosary is so powerful. One saint said it was like holding Mary's hand. And I don't know what could be more comforting than holding your mother's hand. So we're going to share the link for that. Thank you, Kelsey. Thank you, Courtney. Everybody, it was so wonderful to have you with us. If you have questions, continue to put them here. Kelsey and I, and even Courtney, can come back and we can look at them over on Facebook or YouTube and make sure all your questions get answered. Thank you both so much for joining us. Excited that we have 3 more weeks of this.
Yay!
This is so much fun. We will see everybody next Tuesday, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time, again, either on YouTube or Facebook. And the replay will be available on CatholicMom.com. God bless you, and thank you for joining us this morning.